recording. If not, just look off. Okay. Hello, everybody. Let's plan our Meteor sprint number 8 and wrap up sprint number 7. Let's start with our usual demos for this week. So who wants to go first? Do we have any demos for Shooting Star workstream?
So we created some issues for some of the most of the items that we discussed in the document, and we opened up pull requests to fix those. So we are still going through the issues, and we have like halfway done through the pull request. So I'm not sure we have anything to demo as such, but all I can give an update is that we are slowly going through the whole document, and probably next sprint we'll also be doing that.
Did you create some actual issues in
Yes.
the? Is there one particular issue that you created that is like low hanging fruit, or that you can just show as an example that needs to be fixed for DevConf?
We actually created issues for like everything in link on the Elira repo. So they are not going to be linked here because we weren't able to add labels to that repo. So everything we have like marked as Meteor within the Elira demo repo. So I'm not sure we have something particular which we can demo. Isabel, do you think there is?
And I don't mean in terms of demo, just as an example for like, this is the typical issue,
Sure.
and this is the one that we will work on next week because it needs to be fixed and it's pretty straightforward.
Yes, that's something I can definitely.
Isabel just pasted something. Maybe you want to click on this, Tom?
Yeah, I just threw kind of an example of what we're going through for each of the documents in the comments. It's doing things like if you were to do this either in DevConf or on your own, just a few extra steps that might not be obvious to someone who's outside of the AI COE. Things like setting up your container image on Quay, what that entails, setting up the robot accounts. So adding all those little nitty-gritty things that we can take for granted because this is something we do every day, but fresh eyes might not see.
Great. Good. Just let's reiterate, it's not necessity to demo every time for every work stream. So some weeks it's totally okay that there's nothing to demo, and that's fine. Let's move on to the Comet work stream. We did a pretty hefty load of work with Harshad this week for Comet. So we've kind of knocked off most of the pipeline related things. So we've been able to move the pipeline codes into the Meteor code base, do some cleanup on them, do some rewrite on steps and things like that. We also did a rewrite of the UI. So let me demo that bit to you and show you how it all ties together with the Meteor backend, with the Meteor operator and stuff like that, how it can spin up pipelines and basically surface the outputs in the Meteor UI kind of consistently. There's currently, we have a bit of an outage in our MOC0 cluster that it can't bind properly PVC, so I can't show you the pipelines actually working, but I can show you different steps within those pipelines, how it behaves, how it works. So let me show you how the website looks now. On the recording, it may be not smooth. It's smooth on the website. It's a bit cleaner. It has some text to it. It kind of follows the company how it's called, UX, UI. So it's more fitting into our product portfolio. Also down here, you have a list of all available Meteors that we deployed in the current namespace. So if I'm gonna add, specify your URL here and submit the form, the operator will pick it up, show me the detail page of it. Here's the repository URL. Here's the status coming from the operator, basically telling me if I'm building the image, deploying those components, and when this Meteor expires. In the future, we can think of like extending this expiration date and things like that if we want to like get the Meteor last longer and things like that. So there's a space in the UI for this. Once these pipelines are actually finished and all is deployed, these links become available, so you can click on them and actually access Jupyter Hub directly, access the website directly. Also, here's a link to show details, which point you to the OpenShift console. So right now it's pointing you to the Meteor resource here, which is kind of sparse, not very detailed, but the intention here is to point, instead of to the Meteor link in this kind of section of the console, we can point to the OLM section where we can define custom UI components like those scale circles and those different bits and pieces like the dependent resources and things like that. So we can actually show the user what are the resources created from this Meteor, what are the pipeline details and things like that, what are the exact pods. So this is meant to surface the details when the user wants to go into debugging mode and basically dig deep into what's happening behind the scenes. The pipelines are triggered for this Meteor, so you can see it here that Meteor has triggered a pipeline. It has a few steps. It's doing git clone, generating, building, and pushing into the internal registry of OpenShift within the namespace, within the current namespace. We've also reworked some of the pipelines to be using the standard OpenShift pipelines catalog tasks. So instead of having our custom one for doing Docker build or build a bud, we are using the one that's coming with OpenShift pipelines and so on and so on. So there's been some changes behind the scenes here. There are also changes to which can be seen here. Which one? Let me go to the Meteor operator. Oops. There are also some changes to the pipeline manifest or tasks definitions that I did last week to bring some clarity into what's happening and when. The plan is to contribute those changes back to the notebook pipeline that we have in AICOE. So I've kind of changed the logic that is determining which image to use for the S2I custom image build right now, or it was designed to analyze all the different steps, not just the base image, which is not needed for this particle pipeline. So instead, right now, we're properly analyzing all the overlays. We're properly analyzing all the preferred base image used in all those overlays, and basically, based on certain criteria, selecting which image will fit best for this notebook image. It's all happening behind the scenes. In the UI, you can always get back to your Meteor down here in the available Meteors list. And once this timer expires, the Meteor resource gets deleted from the cluster by the controller with all the dependent resources. So all the pipeline runs, all the pods and deployments are cleared along with it. That's same thing to do using the owner references in cluster. That's basically it. That kind of concludes this demo. I will need some help from some of you English-speaking folks to help me fill this in with some English text and some project descriptions. Here, as you can see, it's just lorem ipsum right now. So please chime in, help me with the text here. And also, if you have any concerns about the design, it's a pending PR in the Meteor repository. So feel free to chime in and suggest changes and whatnot. So that kind of concludes the Comet demo. Any
Tom,
questions?
just a few comments. Some from my point of view, the pipelines that are executed are the same pipelines as the ones created by AICUE, right? They are talking about which component is owning what other component. They are not owned by Meteor. So it feels like there must be some kind of tech debt removal issue somehow, because these pipelines should also go into what I've called the local build capability of Open Data Hub, right? So if whatever customer wants to build a custom stack, a custom image, the same pipelines needs to be executed.
Yes.
The same as by Meteor operator, the same as by AICUE CI running on operate first. Good. That's good. And
when it comes to the owner references and things like that, we're not touching the internals of OpenShift pipelines or how these dependencies are determined. We're just setting the owner reference on the pipeline run, which basically is not owned by anyone once you submit it. So we just own it from the Meteor resource. That means it gets deleted along with the Meteor resource.
Damn it, I wasn't even thinking about the owner reference in an OpenShift object. I was thinking about the upstream project, which is owning the YAML declarations of the pipelines. That should be AICUE.
Yes, right now we are having our own definitions because we needed to do some specific Meteor-specific changes. But in the future, we're planning to move those definitions into OpenShift pipelines bundles, which is a new alpha concept in OpenShift pipelines that you can reference pipeline and tasks from a catalog OCI image. So we will just point to an AICOE image and just don't care what's inside, because Tekton will determine all the pipelines, all the steps and whatnot, and all the versioning and things like that.
Yes, nice. Good. Again, from an architectural point of view or concept point of view, is to where is Meteor delivering? Does it depend on Open Data Hub being installed side by side, or is it just delivering to some image stream object in some OpenShift registry?
Well, if you want to use those image streams, you need Open Data Hub. It's not dependent on Open Data Hub to build an image. I don't think we need that dependency in here. But if you want to deploy something to Jupyter Hub, you need to have a Jupyter Hub deployed. And that's where the dependency comes from.
Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, that's it.
The aim here is to have Meteor installed via Operator Hub, so we can leverage as much of the OpenShift console UI as we can, and also the native capabilities of simplistic deployment, and like you don't need to maintain many different manifests, and you just define a single resource with a spec, and it has deterministic behavior on what should happen when. Okay, any more questions to this? Let's move to the telescope area. Any demos from telescope team?
I'm not sure if it's something that can be demoed. It's more of a rough thing that we have right now, but an update on what we did this sprint was we were looking into getting a Grafana dashboard available for some of the Prometheus metrics that we want to start looking into. Initially, with the cluster not available, we were just trying to look into our document that we had for the metrics and insert some which were missing, update some which we discussed with Harshad and Francesco and folks. So we were working on that. The Grafana dashboard is available. I could quickly show you that, but it's more of a rough skeleton at the moment. And we will be working on it further this sprint. So hopefully by the end of this sprint, we'll have a much nicer dashboard in place. But we do have metrics now for the pipelines. In fact, I was just checking while Tom was demoing basically the metrics that we had introduced recently with Harshad's help for all the pipelines. We do have them now. So now the dashboards should have more value. Earlier, it was just sort of a blank dashboard because of the missing values and pieces. But now we have all the data. So I think we would like to demo it next sprint. But that's the update for what we've done. Tom is opening it up irrespective. But yeah, it's kind of looks like this as of now. So the idea behind the dashboard is we want to sort of break it down into 4 different aspects of the overall Meteor project that we have. So looking into the web front of it, some basic metrics like availability, number of requests we're having, visitors we're having, and things like that. And then later we want to break down into looking into the pipeline itself. So things like how many pipelines were successful or failed, what was the average pipeline duration taking for all of these Jupyter Book as well as Jupyter Hub pipelines that we're running. And then further, if you scroll down, we also want to look at the pipeline operations themselves. So all the build tasks that are happening, Harshad was able to help us sort of define these custom metrics to a push gateway. And so these are some metrics that we came up with, which should start populating now since we have a new pipeline triggered. We will be getting data for things like what was the image build success rate, average build completion time, and looking at these sort of metrics from an operation standpoint. So that's sort of the layout, but we definitely want to reiterate and work on this further this sprint with all the data that we're collecting now. But yeah, and this is hopefully where it's going to continue to live in our Operate First Grafana and everything.
Great. That's a great start, I think. Like it. Thank you. So let's conclude the sprint 7. If you did not close your tasks that were due to this sprint and you think the work is done, please do so after the meeting. Close the tasks and move them to the sprint 7 column. If not, if the work is not finished yet, let's carry those tasks over to the sprint number 8, and let's define some goals for this sprint. So, what do we want to do this week? Who wants to start?
For Shooting Star, I think we can aim to go through the rest of the goals, the low-hanging fruits that we want to cover before DEF CON. So we already have the issues created which are linked to the doc. I think we can cover and open pull requests for the ones which we haven't done this sprint.
Can you summarize it in few words as a goal?
Mm,
Get ready for DEF CON again?
yeah, like
that?
I think we can carry over, make the Elira tutorial ready for DEF CON.
And for the next sprint review, since that's then only 2 weeks before DEFCON, if I see it correctly, it would be nice to get an overview of maybe the remaining big blocks that are missing, that you guys think that are missing. So maybe we can reprioritize then here in this sprint meeting and just get a glimpse of what you changed in the demo.
Sounds good.
In the tutorial. So demo the changes.
Yep.
Okay, for Comet, I think our last remaining focus before we can consider something as like working for the DEF CON scenario and things like that is finalizing the Jupyter Hub pipeline, because currently we can push only to the current namespace where the Meteor is deployed. We kind of need the image stream available in the namespace where the Jupyter Hub instance is running. So we need to look into that bit. It should be fairly easy, but it's something we need to change and we need to adjust for.
Is that a Tecton pipeline that what is it doing? Creating image streams with the corresponding annotations for Open Data Hub usage?
I don't think the Docker or container interface is complete enough so it can do all the annotations ODH requires. So you can't do it from within a pipeline. But we're also preparing or populating those image streams from within the operator, which like populating all the annotations and all the things around. And we just need to figure out if Tecton can push to a different namespace than it's running at. If that's something the security constraints will allow us, because currently the default service account is namespace scoped, so we need to test those things, what needs to change and where, to have like minimal security impact on the cluster.
Sounds like a redo of an existing Open Data Hub feature, because I'm pretty sure that Open Data Hub does the same thing, right?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I mean, they must do it, because at some point in time they need to create all the image stream objects.
Yes, but ODH is kind of working in the assumption that everything runs in a single namespace. On Operate First, we kind of don't have that assumption, and we have Meteor in a different namespace than Jupyter Hub, and we have Superset in different namespace than Jupyter Hub and things like that.
Got that.
So that's something we run into on every step of Operate First.
My note, yeah.
And anyway, that Tecton pipeline sounds like a good replacement for their single namespace logic, right? So we could contribute it back.
I don't follow, probably.
If we are creating a Tecton pipeline which is able to deploy whatever container images from whatever registry to a specific namespace, so that the Jupyter Hub that is running in that specific namespace could use them, also known as adding the annotations, that Tecton pipeline seems to be an asset that we can give back to the Open Data Hub community.
I don't think that can happen through a Tecton pipeline, but we will need to look into that. because the Tecton pipeline in the build phase is kind of bound to the container or image registry interface, which is not setting annotations on the image streams and things like that. Like it can set annotations on the tag level, but not on the upper level. So there are subtle differences, but the devil's in details, and we'll need to look into it.
Got that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
an
we'll
awful
see.
coder, but I thought we can put the OC binary in a Tecton task.
Yes.
Just imagining.
Yes. And
Anyway,
my comment goes into the same direction. So having this logic encoded in Tecton pipelines is, from my point of view, more forward-looking than encoding it in the operator in Golang, because the artifact that we will ship and that we will reuse and that people will hack on is the pipeline. So although it might feel like a hack to use OC binaries in a Tecton pipeline because it doesn't work, etc., it's still hackable.
well, it's not a hack actually.
And I don't want to
that is-
discuss whether it's a hack now or whether it's proper, but just from maybe it's faster to prototype it in the Golang operator, but I guess ultimately all this logic should be inside the pipeline.
Yes. That's the direction we want to go. Right now, it's easier to do those changes in the Golang because we can do it directly from the operator controller. But I wouldn't aim with like moving all this into a Tecton pipeline for the DevConf. I would say after the DevConf we can do all these changes and like finalize it as a Tecton pipeline. But right now, let's use what we have and kind of just do the minor adjustments that we need for the security context.
Good.
Yeah. And a third goal for the telescope area.
For the telescope workstream, I think we will carry over what we're doing last sprint, basically finalize the dashboard along with the metrics. So, and have that available for users. Oh, yes. I just saw your ping, Harshad. So there's a discussion that we wanted to just have folks pitch in their opinion. So we're trying to figure out how do we tell users about the Google Analytics tagging that we're doing. So we want to track the data for the website. I think we agreed that we want to have the tag inserted through the pipelines. And Harshad said that that's an implementation we'll have to work on rather than just adding the tag to the upstream repo in the config.yaml. We would want it inserted within the pipelines. But even after doing all of that, we do need to mention to our users that we will be tracking their data. So we want to figure out what's the best way to have them notified about this. How do they opt out of it? That's an issue that we would like folks to have their thoughts added to that. So we just wanted to mention that as well. I think there is an issue in the to-do column. It's issue number 56, opting out of tracking. So we want to finalize that as well so that we can go ahead and get this done.
Sounds to me like a nice issue to show the flexibility of the Meteor operator, right? Because if you want to opt out of the Google Analytics, you need to present the user with the option to opt out, obviously. So it's like a tiny tick box on the user interface, and all that information, that flag being Boolean, needs to be passed through all pipelines, deploy and build pipelines somehow.
Yeah, precisely. I think like through the operator, the definition or the implementation of this is fairly easy. We can just show a banner on the UI on the web page, or have a tick box or something somewhere in advanced menu or something, and just propagate it to the Meteor resource on the backend, and just enable a section of the pipeline or not. That's it.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Tom, if you want to just add to that issue, that would be great.
I'll comment on that after the meeting.
Yep, thank you.
So do we want to make that as a goal of the sprint as well?
Yeah, we could do that. Yep.
Like this.
Yes, looks good to me.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Any more topics to discuss now? Anybody has any concerns about the next sprint? Anybody feels like we are diverting from our original idea and moving to some direction that we don't want to go? Any concerns? Okay, good. Then let's call it a day and let's start working on this. And see you next Monday with all this implemented.
Yes. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.